Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plans, a place where we are on a mission to save the world through simming one incredible flight at a time. And I have got a real gem for you guys today. I found a place up on the northern coast of Spain, the city of Bilbao, which I'd never heard of before, but I was watching some aviation videos this week on YouTube, and on one of them they had taken a drone flight up over this area down by the port and the city and all that, and I thought, well, that looks incredible. So I've got this little website I go to that shows all of the photogrammetry cities in the sim, and if you'd like that, by the way, I think I posted in one of our other videos, but let me know and I can send it over to you. Just drop me a line in the comments. But it's very useful, and it turns out this is a photogrammetry city, and it looks pretty good. Probably like a 7 out of 10 for photogrammetry. But they got mountains, they got forts, they got theme parks, they got all kinds of stuff. Castles, cathedrals, everything you'd want. So we're going to check it all out. And I was dead set. I've flown over it tons of times to make the flight plan, get all our bookmarks in place. And I was planning on taking the Robinson R22. Finally found a good flight for that thing. But then I got in the sim this afternoon, and yeah, we got a brand new helicopter. This is the Westland Wasp by Inibuilds. It said Inibuilds Microsoft, so I don't know if they teamed up or what, but this thing looks great on the outside, looks great on the inside. I have not flown it yet, so we're going to do it together for the first time. All I did was get in and make sure I get started up to build my checklist, which I could at least once, so we'll try it again and see what's up with that. But I think it's going to be pretty cool. We'll see. If it flies as good as it looks, we're in for a treat. All right, Chet, you and your wife get out. You get all your pictures. Time for us to do this. Look at the inside of this thing. Incredible. All right, so if you want to change some of the ground configurations, you just click that little screw right there, and it'll pull up a little thing here. You can click through the different skids. You can take the doors off and all that if you want to. I don't think it'll fly with the doors off, though. I haven't tried it, and I'm not going to try it on this one because I'm not going to wreck on this flight, but let me know if it works. Well, I'm going to find out because after this trip, I'm going to take it with the doors off. Okay, so I got my checklist here. First thing we have to do is turn the hydraulics on, which is right here on the collective. Good. Turn the fuel valves on, and there are 2 of them. I got to lean over here to get to one of them. Okay, check and check. Circuit breakers in. This is interesting. Most planes start with the circuit breakers in. This one does not. So you got to make sure all those guys are in. And then this bus guard needs to be locked down like that. Okay, that's good. And we need to switch the battery to ground. So it has a ground and flight configuration. That'll get everything turned on. My external console just roared to life. And then we need to cycle through the test on the ignition. So down and then back up. And then make sure the rotor brake is down. That's also interesting. It starts in the up position. So make sure you disengage that. All right, so starter on, and then ignition to normal, and then after that, once it gets ramped up, the battery to the flight position. Okay, so starter is down here. Start spinning. Okay, here we go. We're moving. I had trouble getting that far before, and I think it was because I forgot the circuit breaker, so we're doing well. All right, so we'll let that ramp up for just a second. I do have 2 add-ons for this flight installed. Both of them are freeware. One is for this airport, which looks way, way better now and doesn't seem to have a huge performance hit. Let me get this thing set to ignition normal. And it says we have to give it full throttle here in just a second. Let's go ahead and get the battery to flight mode. I'm going to let it run up for just a little bit so we don't take any chances. All right, sounds like it's coming along pretty well. All right, so that'll go to flight mode and bring the generator to normal. And then full throttle, okay. There's an automatic governor in here, and this thing also has some sort of basic... Alright, the governor just took over, cool. Basic autopilot, where it has this button right here will do some kind of self-stabilization. I read about it in the manual, I have not tried it yet, obviously, but that would be an interesting feature for a helicopter, for sure. Okay, so the airport is one of the add-ons. The other one is a tree removal add-on that you absolutely want to put in there because you won't even be able to see some of the landmarks. They way over-treed this area in the sim, so you definitely want to make sure you put the tree removal add-on in there. It's very small, so it won't make a performance hit at all, but you're going to miss a lot of this stuff if you don't have that in there. And let's see what else. Someone had asked me this week about making my pointer larger, which I certainly understand because there's sometimes even I can't find the thing when I'm scrolling around. And I was able to do it in Windows, and I made it gigantic, and you can change it any color you want. Once you bring it back in the sim, it goes right back to this thing. So this is what we're going to be stuck with, unfortunately, but just get yourself a nice big screen if you have one. If not, I'm very, very sorry in advance that sometimes it's hard to see that thing. All right, let's check our baro. This is not the live weather. It changes quickly out here, going from rainy to cloudy and windy, so this is the Sublime setting in Rex AccuSees in advance. All right, you guys ready? Let's see how this bird flies. We could probably taxi with this thing. In fact, let me just cycle our brakes to make sure there's not any parking brakes on here. And we're going to come over here to this runway. So this is Bilbao International. I keep wanting to say Bilboa. It kind of looks like it. And they opened this place in 1948, and because it was after the war, didn't really have any military action out here. Boy, you have to work that collective a lot to bring it up. And this thing feels like it probably weighs like as much as a Chinook compared to that R22. Good grief. Well, it's very, very smooth. Alright. Well, I like this. That R22 is getting a little frustrating. It's just so light to try to fly that thing. Alright, so we'll do a little quasi-taxi here. The only incident they ever had at this airport was in February of 1985, when an inbound flight from Madrid ran into a mountain about 12 miles to the east of this place, killing all 148 people on board. Which is tragic for sure. Boy, this thing handles really smooth at low speeds. Good grief. Man, it's like driving a big old Cadillac, like 1980s Cadillac. Very smooth with the anti-torque pedals. Wow. Man, I haven't even trimmed it at all yet. Well, that's nice. I like how it also has a little collective pitch meter there. You can see it right next to our RPMs. That's interesting. You don't see that in any other helicopters that I'm aware of. Alright, here we go. We're off. Alright, let's start trimming a little bit. Okay, trim seems very sensitive compared to the R22. So need to remember that. Feather touch on that thing. There's a cemetery right here. Looks great. We've been just knocking it out of the park with cemeteries lately. Look at that little guy down there. And I'm coming out here because there's a big building off here to our right, that big one with a white roof. It's got something huge written on the top of it. And I looked up what that company was, and they had no footprint on the internet. What does it say? Inbisa. But in the Google map it said they make some kind of sprayable technology. Not sure what it is, but I always love seeing a building with something painted on the top of it. Alright, so let's bring that collective up. We'll come up over the top of these mountains here. And this first landmark is pretty cool. It's an old amusement park. Well, what's left of one. It was called the Vizcaya Park. Opened from 1974 to 1990. And when they built this thing and when they opened it, they said it was going to be the best, most advanced theme park in all of Europe. And they were projecting to have about 1.5 million visitors a year. Unfortunately, they never even got to a third of that. And in the year before they decided to shut it down, they topped out at 120,000, which was not enough to pay the bills. And as I was reading about why that happened, they said that they had one tiny little access road coming up here, so people coming literally like 2 miles from the city would wait for hours in traffic to try to get out here. So then they decided that they would open a bus route. Alright, let's bring up that collective a little bit. I just pitched down some. But the bus fare was almost as much as entrance to the park, so that wasn't working for anybody. So in the late 80s, they were debating about whether or not to dump more money into it, do some infrastructure stuff to get the roads bigger, and they just decided it wasn't worth keeping it open. And they shut it down. And all that's left out here now is just the concrete paths. But they had go-karts and a zoo and a big swimming pool and a huge amphitheater. We'll be able to see that. And I found a video of this place filmed in 1987. I'm going to link that in the video description too, so you can check out what it looked like when it was open. Pretty wild. It's going to be right up here by that radio mast on the right. Let's see what kind of view we can get of it. This one still does look a little bit too treed over. You'll see at the end on little NavMap, it's a lot more open than this. You can see the amphitheater right down there, see it? And look, you can't see any roads anywhere. A little bit of an oversight, but look at that. It was a great big theme park. Roller coasters, go-karts, you name it, they had it. And here's Bilbao. I really like saying that. Really enjoy saying that. And that's the Nervion River that runs through town. Both of those words feel pretty good in the mouth. Bilbao and Nervion. Try saying that a few times. So this is currently the 10th largest city in Spain with a population of around 1 million in the metro area. And the first settlements out here were on that mountain, that bald mountain right in front of us. They found ruins or some kind of archaeology from the 3rd century BC. That's called Mount Malmason. And they also found some 6,000-year-old burial areas a couple miles to the north. And that seems like an odd spot for an early settlement to me because you can see how far that is from the water. I know it's kind of close to the river down there, but that seems awfully far inland. But I read that the river was prone to serious flooding, and they have lots of weather acting up out here, so maybe that's why they set it out here. That's where it was. That's where it all got started. So far as I know. Okay, so as we come around downtown here, we're going to see the Bilbao Arena, which is that green thing over there to our right. I got both hands on the control, so I can't even use the pointer anyway. And that definitely looks better. That park in front of it had way too many trees on it before. You couldn't even see that. So that's pretty cool. They play Spanish League basketball in that place. And we're going to see a bullfighting arena up here that was opened in 1882, so that's been around for a while. And as you look around in the hillsides, if you fly around here, there's a bunch of old remains of mines. Iron ore mining was a big deal out here way back in the day. Where is the bullfighting arena? There it is. It's going to come around to our right. And this bigger stadium that we'll see to our left with a big white top on it is San Mimes Stadium. Opened in 2013. Of course, they play soccer in there. See the bullfighting arena down there? And I think they're still doing bullfighting. And then there's a Guggenheim Museum. See that bridge over there with the little red bow tie thing over to the right? Right next to that on the river is a Guggenheim Museum. And I didn't know they had multiple Guggenheim Museums, but that thing is one of the largest museums in Europe. And it's a contemporary art museum, and it looks incredible. That tall building right there is the Iberdrola Tower, opened in 2012. That is a 40-story office complex and the 9th largest in all of Spain. There's a museum down there by the river. Look at the architecture on that thing. How crazy is that? All those Guggenheim museums have that wild architecture. Very interesting. Let's come back around this way here. And look at that red-coated walkway down there. All these little wonderful things to spot and look at. Boy, this thing handles so well. Oh my gosh, it is so smooth. Again, it feels really heavy, which is kind of nice in a helicopter. I probably could have left the live weather on, but it was just getting a little too cloudy and I didn't want anything to look too dark. So notice all of the shipping stuff down here. This was a problem for this place when they started building it up, and I'll tell you why later. But they originally built all of the big shipping ports and dry docks and all that stuff way down here. So just kind of put that on the shelf for a minute. Alright, there's a place up here called Manoa Palace, built in 1916. That was a big mansion built by a local businessman and politician. And it's going to be right down here. You also couldn't see that before because there were too many trees. But that place looks really, really big from the ground. It's 4 stories, and he had a separate garage with quarters for his drivers on top of the garage, which is what you call ballin'. Look at that place. And just for the fun of it, I looked up what they called people with lavish lifestyle. Oh, look, a helipad right there. That must be a hospital. I did not notice that before. They called them eggs back in the 1920s. That guy's an egg if he's a balla. Alright, that is the Vizcaya Arena down there, which I think they have some sports in there, but it's also their convention center, and you can see it's absolutely massive and looks fantastic. So we're right at our cruising speed of a little over 100 knots, so that's fantastic. And see that thing up there? That is an observation tower. I could not get much information about that. There were a lot of spots I couldn't get info on because the websites had very, very vague info on it, so I don't know how tall it is, when they built it, or anything. Alright, let's trim down just a little bit more. And I think there was another mine over here somewhere. Well, we'll see plenty of mines. So we're just taking this road over this way, and then we'll come out over the port. But look at all this industry and stuff, nice and filthy and rusty. I'll move my pointer out of the way. So the thing that gives this a few demerits for photogrammetry, some of the bridges, like that one right in front of us, are blocky underneath, which is too bad. So we're going to see some big petrol tanks that have the sides missing, but all in all, most of it looks pretty good and pretty detailed. We'll get a little bit of popping in some spots. That thing right there with the yellow triangle on it is called the Belanti Shopping Mall, which I figured I would point out because it looks really cool. Really cool. There's going to be a bridge on the river here. You can just kind of see it out of our little quarter window right there. It looks like it's a big suspension bridge. Kind of looks like the London Bridge. But it's called the Vizcaya Bridge, and they built that thing in 1893, and it is the world's oldest transporter bridge. And you see that little thing moving underneath it? That is a little gondola that can hold up to 6 cars and like 80 people, and it runs on a little wire system connected to the top of the bridge. So it's not like a vehicle bridge. They have to go in that little thing that's going back and forth, and it takes them across the river. Every 8 minutes, they say, that thing goes back and forth. Oh boy, that was quick. Hope you got in your car in there pretty quick. Just hit it and turned around. Alright, so let's look at all of these wonderful docks and harbors down here. Thank you for Mamu Designs Marina Pack, because that looks fantastic. On these ledges up here that look like the White Cliffs of Dover, when you get real close to them, they look a lot better. From here, they look a little stretchy. There's a big fort from the 1700s down on the other end. We're not going to go check that out, but I'll show that to you on a little NavMap at the end as well, because we need to come back over here. Look at these boats down here. This is just awesome. So here's the port of Bilbao, which looks incredible. They started building this up around 1300 AD, and they were exporting a lot of wool and iron ore they were pulling out of these mountains. But by the year 1900, because so much of the stuff was down upriver where I showed you before, the bigger ships couldn't get down there. So they had a real economic crisis out here until they started rebuilding all this in the 1970s. So I guess most of this wasn't out here until the 1970s. And if you were paying close attention to the dates of all those big buildings I was telling you about, you probably noticed all of them were built in the 2000s or after. So I think in the last 25 years or so, things have really blown up out here. Probably because they're fixing up that port. All right, we've got some hilltop archaeology over here. All of this stuff was built in the late 1800s. On this first little hill, there's the remains of an old powder magazine. Spain built that out of fear of U.S. retaliation. Really, they built all of this around that same time period. After the battleship Maine was blown up down in Havana, they started building some stuff out here. So you can see all that's left of that is the foundation and some walls. See right on there on top of that hill? And this next big thing up here is called Cervantes Fort, and this is Cervantes Mountain here, by the way. Let's bring that collective up, come up a little bit higher. And this thing is like a true blue fort. They got moats and everything around here. So they built that one just a few years before they built the powder magazine. And I don't know why they built the powder magazine all down there by itself without any kind of fortifications around it. But look at this. Look at the moat and stuff. Awesome place for a fort. That was also heavily treed in before that add-on. And this is Cervantes Tower at the very top, built in 1868. This is the first thing they built, and it was just kind of a lookout. And they recently completely rebuilt that. I saw some pictures before and after. And unfortunately now it looks almost too good. I like my old forts to look like old forts, but it looks like it's brand spanking new now. All right, let's check out this port real quick. Boy, I am loving flying this thing. It is easy to fly. Good grief. And for $9, if you're thinking about getting into choppers, this might even be easier than the default ones to fly. It is smooth, smooth, smooth. I mean, look at these ships down here. Just look great. I do have the shipping traffic turned on, so I don't know which of those are static and which of them are added from that. And you can see they just kind of blew the side of this cliff off here, probably to make this big petrol depot. And look at that. Something else is written down there. Hysia. What does the thing underneath it say? Wind. Huh. I wonder if they're the ones that built all those windmills down there. Either that or big sailboats. All right, on the top of this hill up here, which you could also not see any of before, are some World War II, I think World War II batteries. I think Spain built those after Hitler and Mussolini kind of got taken out of the picture because they feared that people might be moving down to Spain next. And you can actually see the little cannons sticking out of the top of these portals up here, and on the back side of it is where the barracks are. Look how detailed that cliff is, though. Unbelievable. Yeah, that whole thing was just completely covered in trees before. Let's see how close we can get, see if we can see the... All right, those little dark spots there around the top are where the cannon batteries are, and the cannons are still in there. They're all dilapidated and stuff, but they left the cannons. Usually they pull that stuff out. See them down there? There's about 5 of them. And then around the back is where the barracks are. How cool is that? Man, this landscape is just perfect for forts. Can we see the cannons? Nope, I'm not seeing them. Surprisingly. Look at that coastline. We're going to get a good look at that in a minute. Just looks unbelievable. And there's a bridge that's filled in underneath. All right, so we got this huge petrol depot up here, and you can see some of those tanks down on the right are missing the sides of them. Those are complete tanks in real life. At least they look like it on the Google Maps. The ones where they're all filled up and the roof is at the top appear to be okay, but the others for some reason have some invisible walls. But they're nice and rusty. You might mistake them for just being ruined. Tucked down here in the middle of this thing is a place called Muñetones Castle. And it was completed in 2 parts. There's a central tower, which you'll see. That was from the 11th century. And they built a wall around it 300 years later, so it's old. All right, see it right down there? I'm going to grab my pointer real quick. Let me switch hands. Right there. See that thing? How nice of them to not build over that with this huge facility. Look at that. You can see the turrets on the corner. Incredible. But the marketing people gave that thing the old Alamo treatment, where if you'd only seen pictures of it, you would think it was sitting in the middle of a giant field, not next to this big oil refinery. If you've ever been to the Alamo, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of people are shocked to discover that that is planted right in the middle of downtown San Antonio. Look how detailed that is down there. All those pipes and towers and everything. Fantastic. If only the sides of all the tanks, but you can see the ones that are filled up have the sides on them, but not the others. And this big beach that we flew over before is called Playa La Arena, which must mean Arena Beach. And I'm kind of wondering if they have the tidal issues that they have up by the Channel Islands and all that. They're probably far enough away to not worry about that. Otherwise, this would just get put underwater when that tide came in. You know, maybe that bridge isn't filled in underneath. Maybe that was just a shadow. Maybe I spoke too soon. Alright, we'll check out this coastline to the right, and then we'll see it out of the left, and it is just amazing. Sorry to keep saying that, but a good coastline's a good coastline. We gotta call them as we see them. Look at that down there. So if they could get them looking this good in 2024, the only thing they could possibly mod up from here would be that line between where the breakers kind of are there and when the ocean modeling starts. You can almost see like a little line. If they could just kind of blend that in, it would look incredible. Look at that. You can see all the little rocks and everything. Just beautiful. Really nice. That is amazing. I mean, most of the time, if you had a big drop-off like that, you know exactly what it would look like. Just a big blurry, running mess. That looks fantastic. A couple of quick announcements. Be sure to check out our Discord server. We are going to be launching our first member-directed and developed and laid out bush plan flight here in probably a couple weeks. All of that will be posted in the Discord server, so if you want to check that out, get on in there. I'll keep updates in there when we're going to do that. He's laid out the flight plan, all the add-ons available in the area. We'll hop on the voice chat section and take a little trip and hang out for an hour or two. It'll be awesome. That's a big chemical plant right in front of us, and they make something called hydrofluoric acid in there, which I'd never heard of. I've heard of hydrochloric acid, but not hydrofluoric acid. So that's interesting. I don't know what they do with that stuff. And there's one more little thing I'm going to mention up here because I thought it was kind of interesting. There's a loading crane hanging out over the water right here that was used way back in the day when they were doing a lot of mining out here. And it was built in the 1800s. It was blown up during the Spanish Civil War in 1937. They rebuilt it in 1938. Look at these rocks. Insane. And now it's just sitting out there. And they've called it a cultural interest asset, and I think they've protected it. Look at that. That is unbelievable. There it is right there. And I saw some pictures of that from the ground. It's interesting. I don't know where the ships would come in. I mean, there's no docks or anything there. Maybe just drop anchor and start pouring it in. But that's pretty cool. It looks neat from the ground. This is just some amazing landscape out here. Really, really nice. Really good. So we're going to fly up here and take a look at this big mined out mountain. And I think that, again, I had trouble finding out what the heck they're using this for or who's mining it or how long they've been doing it. But I think they're pulling out aggregate for concrete and things like that out of here. At first I thought it might be granite or marble because when we come around the other side of it, you'll see the dynamite marks and everything on the side of it, which is something you don't see very often. Very detailed. We'll get a little bit of popping as we're coming in here. But I don't know what exactly they're doing with this now. And the people down there in the town apparently are not pleased about it. They say it's a bit of an eyesore, which it probably is, but it looks cool in the sim, so we're going to check it out. All right, it's not this side. It's this eastern-facing side where you'll see all the marks from the drilling and the dynamite. And you can even see the construction equipment and everything and big piles of rocks they got down there. Look at those rock piles. See the cranes and bulldozers and stuff? There's one parked right on the corner, see it? See all the lines going down in there from the drilling? How cool is that? I've never seen anything like that in the sim. Unbelievable. And I think, again, couldn't quite translate it just right, but on the other side of this mountain, on this next peak, I think there was originally an old Roman fort out here. And you can kind of, not so much in the sim, but on the satellite map, you can even see kind of the ring around it where they had a little wall at one point in time. All right, how are we doing on airspeed? A little bit fast. Let's bring that nose up some, drop that collective a bit. So it was right down here out of that quarter window. Down on the tip of it there. But you really can't see where the ring around it was, but I'll show it to you at the end. So this must be photogrammetry too, because that is really detailed down there. All those buildings and the buses and everything. Very nice, and not too much of a performance hit in a helicopter. Again, we don't have any glass in the cockpit, but this has been a pretty smooth flight. I did turn things down just a little bit. So this is Castro, Urdiales. It started as a Roman settlement in 74 AD, and I think what they were doing was iron ore mining out here. It's a big tourist destination today, but the reason why we're coming out here to check it out is the huge cathedral called the Church of St. Mary down there on that point by that jetty. That was built in the 1200s, and then in front of that, by the water there, is a big castle called Santa Ana Castle that they think was built around the same time, but they're not really sure exactly when it was built. And there's a big lighthouse on top of it too nowadays. I think they call it the Castle Inn Lighthouse. But they said that some of the original cannons had fallen into the water, and they're still down there. So if you want to go diving out here, you can see all the cannons down there in the water. I couldn't find any pictures or video of that, but I bet that would be incredible. I wonder what the water temperature is like out here. Alright, the next point is where we're going to try to set this baby down. There's a nice open spot right along the coast over there, so we'll see if we can do it. Let's start slowing down a little bit, bring that nose up some. Let's see how close we can get to this cathedral. Look at the rocks by the jetty there. Alright, so there's the cathedral with the orange roof, and then there's the castle right down there by the water. But I'm not really seeing the lighthouse. I think it's on top of that turret that's closest to us right now. I think that's where the lighthouse is. Isn't that amazing? I mean, they built that cathedral 1,000 years ago, and it's still standing on the coast. Unbelievable. Let's start slowing way down here. Bring that nose up. And let's see. Okay, see that spot between those two trees just to the right of our center column there? That's what I'm going to try to hit. Let's slow down and come down first. We must have a little bit of a wind. We do. Well, this is not pretty. This is my first landing in this thing, so a little bit of grace and patience. Slow down, helicopter, slow down. There we go. Man, we're still moving forward a little bit. Not anymore. Did we overshoot it? Look at those rocks down there. Crazy. Alright, let's back up just a little bit here. Alright, I think we're okay. And I'm going to come back a little bit more. I don't want to hit those trees. I mean, usually when you get that close to rocks down by the beach, they start looking all jagged and terrible. Those look good. The cemetery looks good. Unbelievable. What a great area. Okay, yeah, we would have overshot that. I'm glad I pulled that back a little bit. Now we can come in. Bring that nose up some. Alright, once we put her down, we'll take a look at a little NavMap. And it will be in the bag. I think our next trip is probably going to be... I still want to go somewhere in the R22. I want to check out some of the towns from the recent UK World Update, so we may head up there, and Japan is definitely on my hit list, so we're going to get out there eventually and check some stuff out. Alright, baby, come on down. Boy, that was smooth. Golly. Man, I am liking this helicopter. What an easy helicopter. This might be the easiest one in the sim to fly. And we're rolling. Are we going to roll backwards? Let's see if parking brakes work. I don't want to roll off this cliff. Nope. Alright, let's just try shutting it down. Alright, so generator off. Alright, we're not moving anymore. Good. Alright, so generator off, ignition off. And then throttle off. Well, the throttle didn't want to come off. Okay, so let's just turn the fuel off. Hopefully it'll just run out. We got a caution light of some kind, probably because I just turned all that stuff off. Alright, hopefully it'll just run out of fuel. Let's see if we can... Oh, there we go. Now we can throttle down. Okay. Alright, well, let's pull up the rotor brake too. We probably shouldn't do it just yet, so we'll just let it kind of wind itself down. And you can see that for some reason little NavMap wasn't tracking our flight. Not sure why, but that's okay. Because we knew where we were going. Alright, so there's where we left from, and there's that big building that had that writing on the top of it. In this flight plan, I have really mapped it out just perfect. I had to adjust it a lot, but if you're taking this in a helicopter, if you follow this as precisely as you can, you'll have a really nice view of everything that we were looking at. But here's where the old theme park was, and you can see there was a lot more trees in the sim, but look at that. Again, check out that video that I'm going to link to it so you can see what it looked like in 1987. That was the year before they started shutting it all down, officially closing it in 1990. So this was the big pool, I think, here, because that's called Lago del something. And I don't know where anything else was, but the original building had a big 9-story parking garage out here. Look at the roads. I mean, that was the only thing coming out here. Not big enough for as many visitors as they were expecting. And the original administration building looked like a big ATC tower. It was pretty cool. And I saw some people that had taken pictures inside of that when it was still standing, and there was just a whole bunch of like papers and desks and unused tickets and all that. Very creepy. I'm into videos like that, abandoned places. So here's Mount Malmason, which is where the first settlements were found. I don't know if they've made that an archaeological park or not, but that's where they say people got started up here. And then there's the proximity to the river. But you can see that's a pretty good way from the coast. But again, maybe it was just safer from the weather. All right, so then we came on downtown here. There's Bilbao Arena, the nice little park they got there. There's the Plaza del Toros, and then over here was the huge stadium. So the only thing of these that was built before the 2000s was this thing, and that was from the 1800s. But of course they had the bullfighting arena back then. There's the big building here, 10th largest in Spain, 9th largest in Spain maybe. And there's that Guggenheim Museum. And you know, I didn't notice until this flight that red thing on top of that bridge there, because look, you can't really see it from directly above, so I don't know what the story with that is. I'm sure it's probably fairly recent, not as old as that transporter bridge, but look at that museum. That's crazy. One of the largest in Europe. And I wanted to show you this. So here's some of the old dry docks and stuff, and you can see how far downriver those things are. So any of the big transport ships, yeah, there's no way those things were coming down here. And I read they also did some big projects to kind of try to straighten the river out too, just to, as the ships were starting to get bigger, they could get them a little bit further in, but that's what ultimately did this place in economically until they could start building up that port down by the bay up there. So here's the house where the baller lived, and I could not find where his garage was. Maybe that's it? Caballeros? I'm not sure what that means. Guys? Men's restroom, maybe? I don't know where the garage was, but he had all of his drivers living on the property too, which is awesome. There's the arena, which is also their convention center. Massive place. And then here is that observation tower, and you can really get a sense of the size when you look at the shadow, because we're looking right down on top of it here. But that thing is huge, just could not get much information about it. But you definitely can see that if you look up to your left as you're coming around there. And then we had this big supermarket here, which looks really cool. That's probably one of the best looking supermarkets we've seen in the sim. And here's that bridge. And there's a little thing that comes back and forth across there. And I'm really glad they animated that. What a nice touch that was. They didn't have to do that, but they did, which is really, really cool. So that is neat. I don't think I've ever seen a bridge like that. And they say that's the oldest one in the world, built in the late 1800s. Came up here, checked out the fort. Let me show you the port. Let me show you where the fort by the port is. So this is it. This was built in the 1700s, and you can see that parts of it are probably falling into the ocean. Because look at that. It probably at one time had walls all the way around it. But it's slowly falling into the water. And this does look pretty good if you want to take a trip up here. This coastline looks good once you get right on top of it, so it's worth cruising out there if you want to. But we had to come check out this stuff. So there's where the powder magazine was, and that looked spot on in the sim. Ooh, I kind of wonder what this was. Looks like they built it in the side of a hill or something. It just seems really odd to me that they would build that down there all by itself. Why not build it as part of the other fort up here, which was obviously the more substantial one? This is my kind of fort. Yep, you got some turrets, you got a moat. That is exactly what I want to see. Which is kind of unique for late 1800s forts. Well, it seems a little late to the game for that because cannons could do a number on that thing. But I don't think it ever saw any action. And then here's where the big lookout tower is. And I was just so bummed out that they totally redid that thing. But it looked like it was probably dangerous before, so that's probably why they did it. Then we came down here, and there's where the Hyzia Wind is. I'm going to have to look at that and see what it is. We had our windmills over here, which was awesome. And then here is where the, I think, World War II bunkers were. And look, you can barely see the cannons sticking out of there. Man, if only people would have left all their cannons. I mean, there's no reason to take those cannons out of those huge Endicott batteries and stuff we have in the U.S. Leave some of them up there for crying out loud. Let the kids burn their hands on them. All right, then we came up here to check out this fort. Look at this place. That looks spot on, too. That was awesome. Really, really cool. Just so wild that they built this thing up all the way around it. And you know, that's kind of a weird spot for a castle, too, being inland like that. There must have been a little river or something that came through here. Maybe that was it. That seems like a strange place because it's not up on a hill or anything. Interesting. And there's that beautiful coastline. Don't miss that. Don't miss this over here. It all looks amazing. I wonder how far up it goes before it doesn't look amazing because that was incredible. But there's where they're making their hydrofluoric acid. Worth pointing out just because it's there. And then here's where that bridge is. You can see it well from here. Look at this. That was the crane to dump the minerals in the ships. Look at that thing. Oh, do we have a tunnel there too? That might be a tunnel there. I bet it is. So they probably had like rail cars or something coming up here because it looks like it just goes in the side of that cliff. They dump them in here and then dump them in the ships when they'd come by. But again, no piers or ports or anything, which seems odd for something they were using in the 1900s. All right, then we came out to check out this huge mountain up here. So this is kind of interesting. Look at this. In the sim, these were all very terraced, but it looks like they either had a landfall or something, landslide, because that's all smoothed out now. So I wonder if they had an accident of some kind up there. Maybe it was intentional. I don't know. And then over here is where I think that Roman settlement was. Look, you can kind of see the rim of where it would have been. And I was looking up these words here, could not find any information about it at all, unfortunately, except that there may have been a Roman settlement up there. But there was definitely a Roman settlement here. AD 79 is when they started setting up this port to pull all their iron ore out of here. And then here's the big cathedral and the castle. How the heck did those cannons get in the water? Oh, I bet they must have had them like right up here along this edge. I wonder if some of that's eroded away too. Although that wall's still there. Maybe they've rebuilt it. Boy, they're big fans of leaving cannons in place out here. I love it. That is fantastic. And then we came on in here for our almost overshot landing. If you're going to take this route, take a little trip around this. It looks just fantastic. Absolutely beautiful. And if you try to land, I tried landing the R-22 up here. These fields are tough to land in, so I would just try to put it down somewhere around where we did. That was a pretty good spot, I think. Or put it down on the beach. Why the heck not? Oh, of course, they got another bullfighting arena out here. Awesome. Okay, so that's it for Bilbao, guys, and it was an awesome flight. I would have never come out here had I not stumbled across that YouTube video. And I'm going to link one more video that is a flyover of this area with a drone, and you can also see all the fort area and stuff. It's just beautiful. It's in 4K, so check that out. You can get a lot better view of the, what again, I think are World War II ruins up there. It was very neat. So stand by for what's next. It'll probably either be UK or Japan, and I cannot wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.